By any normal or even reasonable standard, these are not normal results. These are not even strong results. These aren't extraordinary results. These are arguably the best results that any software company has ever delivered. And that's not hyperbolic, despite what your analyst friends may want you to believe, because they've been wrong at every price. They're wrong on at every single round. But of course, they're persuasive, and they're not investing their own money. But a normal enterprise company should not have a rule of 40 above 100. A normal enterprise company at our base should not have over 100% U.S. commercial growth, should not have 77% growth in the U.S. By the way, that growth is being held down by a stagnant Europe, which is still a significant part of our business. And then if this world was at all sane, every single person in the financial world would stop and say, how did this happen? And doing it in a way that foreshadowed the future. FDE, Ontology, Foundry, making each specific institution, making the American warfighter fight the way the American warfighter is born to fight. Empowering the tenets of being free and having the ability to do creative things in the battlefield context, and then taking enterprises, instead of selling them commodity, parasitic software with a massive sales force, with a kind of lumbering, jargon-bearing leaders offering you steaks and dinners and other things we shall not mention, we created direct alignment with our customers. And what does that mean? It means when our customers have a unique and tribal way of doing something, we put an FDE, we orchestrated an Ontology, we take the tribal understanding of their business, the specific nature of their business that makes them particular and valuable and lethal, and we empower that. So when you see 141 or you see 77% or 63 and you ask, and by the way, with really a workforce that is not growing in any way linearly proportional to that growth, and also with a sales force which is declining, which seems improbable. The reason why that's working is because we are making our clients more money, or we're making them more dominant on the battlefield, and they're paying us a subset of that. And this is why these numbers are so extraordinary. I'll tell you what 114 proves. There is a massive part of the AI market that actually cares about value creation. And that's the part we own. And we own that part because to do this, you have to have FD orchestration, you have to have Ontology, and you have to have Foundry, and you have to have access to the game. And you have to have deep understanding of how to do that. And you have to have done this for a very, very long time with products. By the way, and then the products are getting better and better and better and better. Look how we're doing this. And again, it's not just top line. The rule of 114 that we have shows top line and bottom line growth that is distinctive, massive, and unique. You know, there is this issue in the U.S. that we're all focused on at Palantir, meaning GDP growth defined or helped out and bolstered by AI. What percentage of that is available to the American worker? And so when we're, AI, GDP availability for the American worker, meaning do they participate in this growth? Or is it just people around this table who are getting richer and richer? People across the nation, truck drivers, anybody with specific domain expertise is more powerful, more valuable in our product than they were yesterday. Like high-trained, elite institution, general specialists, that's just not as valuable as it was. Destructive, positive destruction of capitalism is going to put that class of people, typically the class of people that also is kind of skeptical of Palantir, under enormous pressure over the top. Well, yeah, we were right, you were wrong, and we are going to go very, very deep on our rightness because it is exceedingly good for America, it's exceedingly good for the American economy, it's as good for American workers, and we're just going to keep going and going and going. And then we're obviously not going to forecast for next year, but I would say if you're thinking about how this company is going to go, look at our ability to value create, look at our ability to create revenue on the top end, look at it, look at the unit economics of our business. But yeah, I'm wildly enthusiastic. I think we're wildly enthusiastic. And thank you for those of you who've stayed with us to enjoy these numbers, especially Palantirians who work day and night to deliver these kind of numbers.
Thank you, Alex. What do you see as Palantir's unique differentiator that others may not understand?
Well, Alex mentioned a bit of this here. It's become fashionable, actually, for lots of companies to start hiring FDEs. The Financial Times had an article about how it's the most popular new job title. But what you see is that they don't really understand it. It's just mimetic. Like, we build software that works, not software that ought to work. We build software for the world as it exists, not a world that never was. And this ability to find what's true, that comes from the FDE. Our measure of success is not did we sell the software, it's did we solve the problem. And we have built an entire software stack over 2 decades downstream of creating value for our customers. That led to the Ontology a decade ago, more than a decade ago, which is a fundamental prerequisite to getting value out of LLMs in the enterprise. And this past year, it led to AI Hivemind and AI FDE.
Look, obviously another monster quarter for you guys. Congrats. My question for you is, for Alex and team, can you just walk through just the accelerated sales cycles that you're seeing from so many companies that have gone to the boot camps? Like, what surprised you from when they come to you at that first sort of, contact to now actually launching deals? I mean, maybe you could talk about that just in terms of everything you're seeing anecdotally.
So I think, we look at U.S. commercial. We closed $1.3 billion in TCV. That's 6x on a dollar-weighted duration basis from what it was a year ago. And of those deals, 83 were worth $1 million or more, 40 were $5 million or more, 21 deals were $10 million or more. I've been involved in a lot of those directly. I'm feeling exactly what you're asking on the ground from customers. What's happening now is customers are coming to us looking to not just say, let's do a use case. The customers where we're having the most impact are coming to us saying, how do we deploy this across our entire organization? How do we reorganize our entire organization around Palantir and AIP? And that's what's happening on the ground. And we're singularly focused on delivering the value to the customers, and that's our go-to-market. How do we get the product to them and deliver them?
I think where we're seeing the biggest shift is the customers who've approached us very quickly want to move to, how would I change my enterprise to express it in a way that's most valuable according to my terms in your product? And then literally want to reorg. A shorthand version that we often use is, you used to have to take your company private to change the unit economics of it. Basically, just like we're providing venture results, what we're doing actually in enterprises is providing a private equity-like transformation in the public markets, in the public space, under the current leadership. And that's essentially what our best and our newer clients have much higher expectations of us. Like, they're like, essentially, I want to transform my business. I want to do it in months. I want to do it in the public eye while being in the public market, mostly, not exclusively. And, it's a completely different game.
I'm going to do, as usual, a couple of questions, one on commercial, one on defense or government. And let's see if you can discuss what changed from a behavioral perspective, from a customer's perspective, to see this accelerated appetite to incorporate Palantir, to not only accelerating how many customers you have, but also the existing customers go up the value chain. And what changed internally as well. We recently saw in a visit these like AI agents or AI FDEs, like how are you incorporating tech internally to be able to accelerate and catch up with that demand? And on the government side, US government up 50% plus is really impressive. And how do you think about opportunities like Golden Dome going forward, piling up to this?
Do you want to start with commercial or?
Sure, yeah. I think on the external, I think it's like going deeper and deeper and more like tangible results with customers where there's a network effect incoming, like customers sharing impact that we're having and direct impact we're having with customers. Customers are seeing as it's a continuation of what we've been doing, but going deeper and deeper with the customers on that impact. And I think that, what we're seeing is more and more are now coming to us saying, and the ones that are most impactful are coming to us saying, let's do more.
Ryan, our clients realize the choices suck, basically, and they've tried a lot of stuff. It hasn't worked. But then in the marketplace, they see the final result of someone else using Ontology, Foundry, FDE, and now it's like, wait a minute, I'm paying hundreds of millions of dollars and getting nothing, and the person down the road I kind of look down on is way ahead of me, and that just shifts the whole conversation, because then we're like, okay, well, if you want it to work, you're gonna have to do these 5 things, and these things are like, you're gonna have to talk to Ryan, and you're gonna have to, occasionally meet with me, and you're gonna have to actually allow us to come in with engineers, and we're gonna have to actually work on the problems that are valuable for your business, and also look at the costs that are dragging you down. By the way, the cost for most businesses is not just the actual money they're wasting. That wasted money creates an ecosystem of waste. They're talking to all these vendors all the time about all these things that will never work instead of solving the problem. And so getting the pathogens out of their business is a real issue, and now they're really, really interested in this.
I'll make the mistake of trying to follow Alex there and just say on the internal side with AIFDE, that's why we actually originally built it. Our headcount has grown roughly 10%, but revenue grew 63%. How are we doing that? We've made our FDEs wildly more productive, and so much so that we decided to give it to our customers. We've started to make our customers more productive. When you have a note like the Army Vantage note, where the Army's consolidating into the Army data platform, you now have an army, literal army of green suiters who need to become proficient developers developers and the software. And you have a generation of green suitors whose first interaction with the software is going to be with AI FDE. They're going to be superheroes on day one. I think it's accelerating adoption, it's accelerating understanding, like the depth of adoption, not just are you using it, but how much of it are you really using? How much of it can you understand? And then quickly on your comment on the U.S. government business, like, yeah, the number of opportunities out there are great. I can't comment on all the opportunities you mentioned there, but whether it's NGC2, the continued growth of Maven, I mean, we have, of course, America's involved with 3 conflicts right now in the world, from Europe, the Middle East, and in our own hemisphere right now. And things are getting a little spicy in Africa.
By the way, let me say something slightly political, and I'm not saying other people agree with this. I want people to remember, if fentanyl was killing 60,000 Yale grads instead of 60,000 working class people, we'd be dropping a nuclear bomb on whoever was sending it from South America. Palantir, we are on the side of the average American, who sometimes gets screwed because all the empathy goes to elite people. And that's why, it's like when you have an open border, it means that the average poor American earns less. I know my fellow progressives believe having an open border is going to make things, but that's because they're actually repping elite people instead of the working class. And the same thing in South America. I believe our Constitution does not give us the right to stop 60,000 deaths a year of working class men and women is insane. To the extent we're involved in these efforts, I and most Palantirians are very proud of this.
Alex, as always, we have a lot of individual investors on the line. Is there anything you'd like to say before we end the call?
We're rocking along. Please turn on the conventional television and see how unhappy those that didn't invest in us are. Enjoy, get some popcorn. They're crying. We are every day making this company better, and we're doing it for this nation, for allied countries, and also for, I never really like the term retail investors. How about sane people who put up their own money and fight for us? And by the way, you are fighting for the right side of what should work in this country. Meritocracy, lethal technology vis-a-vis adversaries, products that spread GDP to working class men and women by making their value creation higher, and by the way, your bank account. And thank you for that.